Welcome to the Impatient Entrepreneur Podcast, a show where we hear from entrepreneurs and business owners who are chomping at the bit to make their mark on the world. I'm your host, Lauren Quidar-Cockrell. Now, let's hurry up and get to the good stuff. Welcome back, friends. I'm excited for you to meet Christian Espinosa, founder and CEO of Blue Goat Cyber, which is a fun name. They're focused on medical device cybersecurity, and his official title that he shared with me is risk taker. So I can't wait to dig into that today. Christian, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lauren. Glad to be here.
Great. So tell us, what is Blue Goat Cyber?
Blue Goat Cyber is my cybersecurity business. It's my second one. I sold one in 2020. So this one, we focus on medical device cybersecurity. That's our niche. So we help medical device manufacturers, which may manufacture like an implantable device. It could be like a pacemaker, could be a surgical robot, could be an in vitro diagnostics machine, could be a glucose monitor. Any of these sort of devices, we help them make sure the devices are secure from hackers and help them with all the documentation and all the testing to get approved by the FDA or the EU medical device regulatory body, which is the European Union equivalent of the FDA here in the United States.
That's super interesting. Is there a lot of competition in the medical device cybersecurity space?
I do not think so, which I believe it's a blue ocean strategy, unlike cybersecurity in general, which is a red ocean strategy. There's not a lot of competition. I think I only have a couple competitors. Because it's super challenging, there's a lot of things to know. And it is not a crowded space, but I think it's hard to get in the space without the experience. I've been doing this, fortunately, since 2014 in my first cybersecurity business. We did medical device cybersecurity also. It just wasn't our pure focus, which it is now in my company.
That's very cool. Well, I'm glad you're making our devices secure. You probably don't think about things like, oh, I want to make sure that that's, but that's like some of the most sensitive data that there can be. So we probably do want to make sure that they're protected from hackers.
Yeah, it's with medical devices, the primary concern is patient safety. I mean, sensitive data is like number two, really, but if I can hack into a surgical robot that's performing surgery on somebody's back, you could potentially mess up someone's spine and paralyze them or kill them. If I can hack into, implantable, and Dick Cheney actually had his pacemaker taken out because of one of these threats, where with an implantable, they have wireless capability because you have to be able to read data off of it, update the firmware. But an attacker can exploit that wireless capability. And with Dick Cheney, there was a scenario that was super plausible where somebody from a pretty far distance, like 100 yards, they were able to do this, test it could remotely connect to his pacemaker and shock him to death. So he has pacemaker removed. So we help make sure that those scenarios don't occur again.
Like actual security. I mean, just physical security. That's terrifying. Well, thanks for doing your work. So I have lots of questions about, the genesis of the business and your journey, of course, but a first official question, Christian, are you an impatient entrepreneur?
Of course. I think it's hard to be an entrepreneur and be patient. But I'm learning to become more patient. I realize, we sort of overestimate what we can do in a year and greatly underestimate what we can do in 3 to 5. So I've come to terms with that.
Right.
Not complete terms with it, but more so, yeah.
We can accept it while also not live it.
Right.
It's like, yes, I understand that intellectually. Perhaps won't change my behavior. So, this is your second crack at this. You said your first cybersecurity business was a little more generally focused?
Yeah, we did training as well as services, and our services were across multiple industries and multiple offerings. And I realized that because we tried to offer so many things, our messaging was diluted, and we ended up becoming inefficient because of too many offerings. So right now, with this company, I have a very specific offering for medical device cybersecurity. Our target audience or prospects are medical device manufacturers, and they're trying to get their devices approved by the FDA. So they have a need for us, and we fill that need and help them address their challenges. And our messaging is very clear. That's who we go after. So when we go to an event, we go to medical device conferences where those are our prospects are looking for us versus going to a cybersecurity conference, which to me makes no sense because you're just there with a bunch of other cybersecurity people.
Right. It's just networking.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, that's a unique position to be in to sell your business. You hopefully have some financial runway, and then, to start over, I guess, with the intent of like, okay, I've learned all these lessons, how do I get to actually live that, if you could start over today, what would that look like? And you did it. In addition to narrowing your focus, were there some other lessons that you took from the first entity into the second?
Yeah, there's a lot of lessons. On my first company, I established payroll with pretty high salaries early on. And that caused a lot of stress because, if you have to make payroll, you just can't, if revenue doesn't come in, payroll doesn't stop. So now I'm doing payroll a little bit differently. It's like a low salary with more of a revenue sharing type of model to incentivize people and also reduce the risk to the company as well. So that's one thing. And then my exit from my last company didn't go well. I sold my company primarily for stock. At the time, the stock was about $6. And then right after, I could never sell it when I was employed by the parent company. When I left, I started selling it. I could only sell so many shares a day. And the stock went down to 10 cents. So I sold it on the way down. I saw, all this money I thought I had just sort of evaporate, fairly quickly.
Yeah, that's tough. It's like, there goes my baby, and it's not worth what it was.
Exactly. No, I paid a lot of the dumb tax, as they say. Yeah.
We do that, don't we? But you're not going to do that again.
That's right. Sometimes the more painful the lesson, the less likely you are to repeat it.
Right. Well, let's hope. Yeah. That's, you get real wise real quick. So how do you fuel yourself as a leader? You mentioned you go to conferences for your target market, but are you a book guy? Do you listen to podcasts? How do you make sure that you're up to speed and can be the best business owner and leader that you can be?
So I do whatever's necessary. Like between January and May, pretty much like 15 hours a day, I worked on search engine optimization and strategies to get inbound leads. And I watched YouTube video after YouTube video. I read about it. I listened to podcasts on it. I took courses on it. I did everything I could do to maximize inbound leads. And that strategy is working. So now I'm doing everything I can do to help with marketing, public relations, and outbound campaigns. So I constantly am researching that. I try to create as much more content that I consume, but I am going to an event this year, the Vault event. It's a Patrick Bet-David event. I haven't been to an event like that in a few years, so I'm going to that event. And then we're going to quite a few medical device conferences. And to position myself, I am speaking at several of those conferences, and I'm also hoping to wrap up a book on medical device cybersecurity in the next few months.
Cool. Yes, you are an author. You've published 2 so far?
Correct. Yeah, 2 books so far.
Okay. And how is that for you? Do you enjoy the writing process?
I do. The writing process is like my last book is more of a focused memoir, so it was very transformational to analyze your life and look at it in a way to try to articulate a lesson from it for myself, and then for anybody that reads the book. That's I think the book should be transformational for the author as well as anyone that reads it.
Sure. Okay. So is there anything in particular that you're impatient about right now? Is there something you've got a book coming up, but anything else that you mentioned a few things, but that you're rolling out, or that you really you're ready for that baby to be born yesterday?
I'm impatient about the book because I got like 90% of the manuscript done. And then when I talked to people about the publishing timeline, doing the layout, because you have to do all the layout, and the book is pretty long. It's like 90,000 words. They're telling me it's going to take 2 months. I'm like, why does it take so long? But I realized to produce a quality book, it takes proofreading, editing, developmental as well as line editing, cover design, different formats for ebook versus paperback. So it does take a while, but I know I could do it faster, but I want it quality as well. So sometimes I think, well, fine, I'll just do it myself, but I can only do so much though.
Right. Yes, you do have to choose, especially, as the business in your life, it gets more sophisticated and you have team members and all that. You can only get so far if you're doing everything yourself.
Right.
So now we talked about your team for a moment. Are they mostly stateside? Are they spread out? Are they local, remote? Tell us
Everybody's
about that.
stateside and we all work remote. I don't have a physical office. I mean, I have a building in St. Louis I can use if necessary, if we need to like ship an equipment there or something, but all of us work remote right now.
Okay. And how has that been as far as, if you're building a culture and a team and esprit de corps and whatnot?
It's been fine. In my first cybersecurity company, we worked remotely there too. We did have an office we could go to if necessary. Most of us were local to that office. So we worked remotely. So I've been working remotely since like 2015. And we used Zoom before the pandemic, before people even heard of Zoom. We were like some of the first people. And there was a lot of things I had to establish from a cultural perspective, like to be on camera, to show up on time for meetings, to make sure you had a clear background, a distraction-free environment. And I wasn't like monitoring people to like make sure they're online, but I was making sure people met deadlines and understood like, this is actually work, even though you're at home or you're at Starbucks or wherever you are. But if you're at Starbucks, we can't talk about confidential things. So, it's just a lot of things we went through that it seemed like the rest of the world finally ended up going through when the pandemic hit or figured it out.
Yes. My remote work journey started in 2013 when I worked for an IT company for a few years. And we were all local, but we were still remote. And we were using, it was Microsoft Link and then Skype for Business. Now it's Teams. But yes. And then when I started my company in 2017, we were remote. Then we had an office for a little bit. Now we're back to remote. But it's I love it. It works. I mean, it works great for, a lot of us are working parents, and it's just nice. We can obviously go meet someone if we need to, but being able to be more efficient with our time and our tasks, and what matters is getting it done more than anything. So
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so switching gears a little bit, you've had this interesting career trajectory. Has there been a moment in either of your entities where you felt like the rug really got pulled out from underneath you in business, and you're like, oh boy, I am not sure we're going to survive this one, but ultimately it turned out to be one of the best things that could have happened?
There's been a lot of those scenarios. One of the biggest ones, I remember I was very close to not making payroll, and I was super stressed out about it. I was like wondering what to do, and I think I was like in the fetal position on the floor, just kind of sobbing, like, I don't know if I can figure this out. And I got all these people depending on me. Like, if I don't make payroll, like, what's the impact that this is going to have to my staff, right? And I called probably 5 of I thought were my closest friends, and I know they had money, and not a single one of them would lend me anything. And I just needed like $10,000 for like a few daes, because I had receivables coming in. It's just like the timing, right?
Right.
And none of them would lend me money. And I was like, man, I thought these were my true friends, but maybe not, because at a time of crisis, very few people step up to help you. And in a time of like celebration, like people are happy to be there, but not in a time of crisis. I remember hearing this thing once that like funerals are mandatory and weddings are optional. And it's kind of the same thing, people didn't show up when I needed them. So it made me realize I need to have a different group of friends. That was one of the first things. And then, I had to be super creative because entrepreneurship is really about problem solving and thinking outside the box. So what I ended up doing is I had some space on a credit card and I made a charge to my company. I charged my personal credit card and then I refunded it later to cover the payroll. So probably not the most, I don't know if it's an ethical thing to do, but, I just made a charge and refunded it. But that gave me the money to cover the payroll. But yeah, that situation made me realize I need to have a better group of friends, because I think, as Jim Rohn says, you're the average of the 5 people you hang around with. And I'm thinking I need to have more friends that I need something, which I rarely ask for anything, but they would be willing to offer it to me, and I would do the same for them.
Right. That's so interesting. We're not to pour salt in the wound, but were those friends entrepreneurs or no?
No. In fact, a couple of those friends did not respect my decision to leave like a high-paying corporate job and start my own thing. They thought I was crazy, leaving my quote benefits and the stability and all this garbage. And I should have realized that the fact that they didn't support me then, why would I expect them to support me later on my journey? Because they're probably thinking to themselves, we told him so, and here he is asking us for something.
He didn't listen to us when we said, don't leave that gig. And guess who has his hat out now?
Right. That's probably what's going on. And it took a lot for me to ask. I had to. It's a moment like in entrepreneurship. You come to certain moments. And you're like, I'm super uncomfortable with this, but it's what I have to do, no matter how vulnerable or how it comes across. This is what I have to do. And that's what I love about entrepreneurship as well. It forces you to grow.
Yeah, I was had a friend and fellow colleague on my show a while back, and we talked about being business owners and entrepreneurs has really shown who we are as people and helped us become the people we were meant to be by making those tough choices and having to be vulnerable at times and really taking, you got to take care of people. You can't just be like, sorry, I'm not going to pay you for the work you've done.
Right.
Like you're going to the ends of the earth to make that payroll. And, to live courageously, it really does bring out a lot. And well, hopefully you now are surrounded by other entrepreneurs who would be like, oh yeah, man, I get it. Making payroll sucks. Let's do this.
Yeah, I am.
I can float you for 3 days.
Yeah, I have a different group of friends for sure. Yeah.
How did you find those friends? I mean, it sounds like you were pretty intentional about that.
Yeah, I joined entrepreneur groups and did some networking that way, and I felt like there's like-minded people at entrepreneur type events, and we're all going through the same thing. So we understand, that things like that happen. And if we're in a position to help, then, help will come back. It's like karma. So yeah, I've just intentionally joined groups where there's people like me in them. Not like me, but people going through, fellow entrepreneurs. Yeah.
Who can understand that type of life and, not judging you for choosing this for yourself as you're out there. I mean, making the world a better place, like literally. So
yeah.
Well, that's really, that's poignant. I think, it can be tough. I've heard other entrepreneurs lament at times not feeling like their friends or family can really relate to their lived experience. And I don't have that super much, but I guess I probably do have a lot of entrepreneurial minded people in my life. So I haven't felt that too painfully, but yeah, I mean, it's different when you're thinking about those receivables and their payables and they're not quite meeting at the same time.
Yes.
So when you were younger, was there a personality trait of yours that people maybe made you feel that was potentially a weakness, or made you feel self-conscious about it? And then over time, as you became an adult and a leader, you realized that personality trait was actually your superpower?
Yeah, I grew up in a very poor and chaotic environment in a single wide trailer with a drug addicted mother in Arkansas.
Wow.
And my family was very poor as well. And just, they didn't think the same way I did. So I worked extremely hard to get out of my environment. I got a scholarship to the Air Force Academy, and that's how I got out of Arkansas. I mean, we were on welfare and government cheese and powdered milk and all that stuff. It was pretty chaotic and poor, and lots of car wrecks, lots of my mom going to jail all the time in a small town, so everybody knew my story. So I worked very hard to get out of that. And I remember coming back from college, from the Air Force Academy, for a visit back during a vacation, and my mother said something like, "Oh, you think you're Mr. Big Shot." And I'm like, why is she saying that? And what she was meaning is like that I had outgrown like my family, and I didn't have a lot of tolerance for that environment. And I had I was growing up at the time, so I had, leverage. And I thought, I guess I don't think I'm Mr. Big Shot, but I do think I don't identify with these problems my family is having. And I think that's okay. And it took me a while to kind of come to terms with that, because I don't want to be looked at as different from my family, but the reality is I am different from my family, and it's okay to be different than other people and strive for something. If people don't like it, that's okay. And I have a lot of, my ex-friends, like, the ones we talk about, that I thought I shouldn't start my own business. They kind of thought the same thing when I succeeded and sold the business. Like, oh, you're, this rich guy that has your own business. And, it's okay if people think differently. So I guess my superpower is I had to come to terms with not everyone identifying with me or accepting me. And I realized that that's not a bad thing. If I'm striving for something bigger and different, that is my choice. And it doesn't matter if other people accept me or not at this point in my life.
Right. As long as you accept yourself.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. And that can be really hard. I think a lot of people make choices based on what others think about them or their opinion of them. And so, forgetting that the only opinion that really matters is yours. And that can really hold us back. I mean, we can all understand that and empathize that, whether it's to a small degree or a large one, and to really step into your own power and to see your vision and to see the beauty in your vision, and knowing that you have what it takes to get there. But with so much wind in your face is tough.
Yeah.
So kudos to you for moving ahead anyway, despite some of that drag. What is a piece of advice that you can share with our listeners that they can take and make their lives and businesses stronger and better?
I think the biggest, there's lots of advice. I think not the biggest, but one piece of advice is to look at your life, and if it's not going the way you want, in your health, your wealth, and your relationships. I kind of use those three categories. You need to change, make the change yourself. I think our outer world is a reflection of our inner world, so we need to do the work. So if our business isn't where we want it to be, there's something wrong, or something needs to change internally with whoever is driving the business. If it's the entrepreneur, they need to change, because I believe that business is only going to grow as much as the entrepreneur. I believe business or entrepreneurship is really personal development, just wrapped in the context of business. So, if you're hitting a roadblock in your business, that's because there's a roadblock inside you, and you have to change what you're doing. And that sometimes requires letting your ego go, asking for help, being vulnerable, joining a group, doing something outside your comfort zone. But that's how you get to the next level. And a lot of us want to keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result. We just keep brute forcing something. And this could be in a relationship too. I've talked to a lot of people because I've done life coaching in the past. And, they've had like 10 relationships that all ended the same way. And every single time they point the finger at the other person. It's like, what is the common denominator here?
Yeah.
It's right. It's you. So maybe do some reflection, take some ownership, and change what you can control, which is yourself. Yeah. So I think that's a big piece of advice. Absolutely. To work on ourselves, and our outside world will improve, right? And our world improves.
Was there a big moment when you decided to leave your corporate job to start your first cybersecurity firm?
I was having this contention with the CEO of the company. I was a VP of security products. And we were having this constant like headbutt and contention. And I was making a lot of money. It was, 9 to 5 job. It wasn't like super stressful, but that tension with the CEO was very stressful. And I remember it was keeping me up at night. I was having like nightmares about it. I was like stressed out.
Yeah. Yes.
And I remember thinking, man, this is not worth it. So I just quit. I was like, I didn't have another job lined up. I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to quit. In the past, I would have had, another job lined up. But this time I just like, I don't care if they offer me like $10 million. I'm not staying. It doesn't matter. It's too stressful.
Yeah.
So I quit. And then after that, I was like, do I really want to work in the 9 to 5 environment again? And I decided I didn't want to. So I decided to leverage my connections and do freelance work. So I found enough gigs to do solopreneur work or freelance work. I did that for about 5 years. I made a lot of money doing that, had a lot of time off, but I got bored with it. And I thought, how else can I contribute to society, and forced me to grow? I thought, well, I'll start a business and actually hire people and try to scale the business. And that's what I did. And that forced me to grow. Forced me to be super uncomfortable. But I had 16 people at one time, my first company. So I was contributing to society in a way of like providing income to people, hiring them, but also mentoring people in my company and helping them mature and have better opportunities in the future. So that was very, very rewarding as well, building a team and leading the team.
I agree with you. When I left a former job, in not a great way, but I was planning on leaving. They let me go. I was 8 months pregnant at the time. It was not ideal. And so I couldn't go interview, and I thought, well, I'm at a crossroads. I'd always wanted to start a business. But I felt like it was a few years away, and I was like, well, I guess today's the day. But I was just like, no, I'm just going to do this myself. I'm not going to hire people. And I was really afraid of hiring people and having people depend on me for payroll and so forth. But when I actually had someone encourage me at one point. He was like, don't be afraid, just do it. Which, it's kind of like, okay, that's not really helpful, but he's a CPA, and he coaches a lot of entrepreneurs in their finances and so forth. He was like, it's not as scary as you think. Just go for it. Like, I don't know, I think it is. But it's like, once you start doing it, it gets a lot easier. The first one's hardest, but all that to say, the having a team and taking care of them, and and like you said, contributing to society in that way, and growing a culture has been one of the most wonderful gifts of my entire life. And I had no idea what was waiting for me when I started this business.
Yeah, it is a gift, and it can be challenging because people, I don't have children, and people always say, well, you don't have children, so you don't know this and that, but I have staff, right? And they're just, often like adults are basically, big babies to some degree. Yes. They try to push the limit. You got to keep them in check. You have to set expectations. If you take your eye off them too long, they'll try to push the limit again. It's, and you want them to help grow and everything. It's the same stuff. It's just a little bit different packaging, really, right. The way I look at it.
Yeah, we're all just like two toddlers stacked in a trench coat. I mean, it's like we might get taller, but we're still little ones underneath for sure.
Yeah.
And I do have kids, and it's, that is a different nurturing, but that nurturing is still very much a part of making sure that, people are reaching their dreams and that they're fulfilled at what they're doing. And if they're not, like, how can we release them back into the economy? But if they are, like, how can we grow them and have, the more they grow, the more they contribute, and the better off we all are. So it can be hard to do all the time, but it's certainly a worthy pursuit.
Yeah.
Okay. So wrapping up, this has been a great conversation. Thank you. Where can people find you?
They can find me on my personal website, christianespinosa.com, or my company website, bluegoatcyber.com. I'm also on LinkedIn and pretty much all social media. And my books are available on Amazon. Or if you like to listen to books, you can listen to them on Audible. They're on Audible as well.
Awesome. Well, we'll put all those links in the show notes in case someone's driving right now.
All right, super.
All right. Thanks, Christian. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren.
Thanks for listening to The Impatient Entrepreneur. Love the podcast? Be sure to share it with a friend or colleague and give us a 5-star review. You can also chat with us on Instagram or Facebook at The Impatient Entrepreneur Pod. Want to star on a feature episode? Head over to theimpatiententrepreneur.com to inquire. Thank you to the team at Quidar & Co. for believing in me and bringing this podcast to life. And thank you to Carson Childers for mixing and editing this episode. I can't wait to see you next time.